EMS learners financial literacy. Then today we'll be looking at the accounting equation. On the accounting equation, what is important to know is that accounting equation is not part of the accounting cycle as it is. It is not used by the accountants, but it is used by accounting learners. Then the important thing again, when you talk about the accounting equation, you need to remember that it is important to understand the accounting equation as it is the foundation of the subject and the basis for building basic accounting principles and the concept. The theory behind the accounting equation is the underlying theory of the whole accounting system. Now, you need to remember that every transaction results in financial changes within a business, and the effect of each change is reflected in accounting equation. Now, we are saying each transaction will have a debit entry and a credit entry. Now, we are applying what we call a double entry principle. You'll remember from the ledger. Now, let us look at the accounting equation, then we analyze it so that you can understand it. Now, when you come to accounting equation, we are saying there are steps that you need to undergo in order to analyze the transaction. Number one, you need to identify two accounts that are affected by the transaction. In grade 8, we are talking about only two accounts. In grade 9, we are talking about two or more accounts that are affected by one transaction. Now, you need to identify whether those accounts are the asset, owner's equity, or liability accounts. Now, which one increases and which one decreases? Those accounts that we have identified that are affected by the transaction need to identify the one that will increase and the other one that will decrease. Which one will be debited and which one will be credited? Remember, on this one, we are saying one account must be debited. It is compulsory. One account must be debited and the other one must be credited. But in terms of the increase and decrease, two accounts can increase or two accounts can decrease. Now, it will depend on the transaction. Now, let us look at the analysis of the transaction now. We look at this one. When you look at the transaction, here's the transaction. Peter Clover deposits 160 as a capital contribution directly in the business bank account. Receipt 001 was issued. Remember, he will deposit the money. Then immediately when you receive that notification, you need to receive a receipt. Then when you analyze the transaction, you say, which two accounts will be affected? It will be a bank and the capital. Now, looking at the first one, looking at the first analysis here, you can see the bank will have a positive effect on the assets. Then the reason will be the bank increases the assets by 160. Then the impact again under owner's equity, the effect it will be plus 160 owner's equity. Then the source document that will be used here, it will be a duplicate receipt or the bank statement. Remember, the one that will be received first. But in this case, we are saying when you receive the bank statement to inform you that the owner has deposited the money, but the owner can bring again the deposit slip into the bank account, or the EFT shows us the EFT that he's deposited the money in the business. Then this transaction, it will be recorded in the journal, CRJ, cash receipt journal. Then in the ledger, we say debit one account, we credit the other account. Now, when we come to this debit and credit, it is the ledger, general ledger. On the general ledger, bank will be debited because it is an asset, increase on the debit side. Then owner's equity will be credited, which is the capital in this case. Capital will be credited because it falls under owner's equity, increases on the credit side. Now, let us come now to this accounting equation to analyze it thoroughly so that we can understand it. We say bank will be debited, then account that to be created to be a capital, then assets will increase by 160 because of the bank, then owner's equity will also increase by 160. Grade 8, remember that liabilities, you are not dealing with liabilities now. Liabilities, will see them in grade 9. Now, moving to the next transaction. On this one, when you look at the transaction, say paid 17,000 to Arise Properties for the rent for the month and paid by EFT, number 521. Now, looking at this transaction, when you analyze it, there are two transactions that will be affected. Remember, once we say we are paying, we are talking about payment now. Payment, it falls under CRJ. This transaction falls under CRJ. Bank will be affected. Then we are paying now. When you pay the money, bank will be affected. Then bank will decrease. Bank falls under assets. Bank will decrease the assets by 17,000. Now, rent expense. We are with the business, we are paying rent, then rent expense will be affecting owner's equity negatively, so it will be negative 17,000 rent expense. Then source document, it will be EFT, general, it will be CPJ. Then in general ledger, when you drop the general ledger, remember that we remind you about general ledger. We say rent expense will be debited and the account to be created, it will be bank because it is from CPJ. It shows a decrease in asset, therefore amount to be 17,000. When you look at it again in another format of accounting equation, we'll say account to be debited, it will be rent expense, account to be credited, it will be bank, then assets will decrease by 17,000. Also owner's equity will also decrease by 17,000. Bank will decrease asset by 17,000, then rent expense will decrease its owner's equity, or it has a negative impact on the owner's equity by 17,000. Moving to the next one. On this one, we have two transactions on the same day. Now, you need to be careful when you have two transactions on the same day. You need to identify two accounts affected for each transaction. Now, let us look at the first one. Cash received for services rendered according to cash register roll, it is 3,600. We have received cash. It means when you receive cash, our money in the bank account will increase. Then what it is for what? It is for current income. Then current income will have a positive effect on the owner's equity. Owner's equity will increase because of the current income. Now, the source document, it is the cash register roll. The transaction will be recorded on the CRJ, cash receipt journal. Then the second transaction, issue receipt number 002 to Donald Davids for rent received. Now we are not saying we have paid the rent. Now as the business, we are receiving the money. We have received the money for the rent from our tenant. Then he rents part of the building at 3,200 per month. It means we have received 3,200. It will increase our assets. Then the reason will be bank or cash increases. Then also owner's equity will increase. Learners, you should be careful. When you look at this one, bank increases and the current income increases. Bank increases, this one 3,200, then also owner's equity will increase by 3,200. We are saying now it will be increase this side and increase this side. But looking at the ledger again, on the ledger we say bank will be debited on both transactions. Then on the first one, the current income will be credited. Remember, it is an owner's equity account. Therefore, increase on the credit side. That's why we credit the account. Rent income, it is also an income, increases on the credit side. Now, in another format, we are saying now this transaction will be having this impact on this format of owner's equity. Account to be debited, it will be bank on both transactions. Then account to be credited, it will be current income on the first transaction. On the second transaction, it will be the rent income. Now remember, A, it is equal to OE plus L. Assets are equal to owner's equity plus liabilities. Now, when you look at the statement, it tells you that 3,600, which is positive, it will be the same amount on the right-hand side. 3,600 plus 0. Left-hand side, it is equal to right-hand side. Plus 3,200 plus 3,200. This one goes together with 0. Therefore, it means both sides are equal. Now, moving to the next one, bought a cash register from brand traders and paid by EFT, number 522, 14,500. Then this one again, learners, you should be careful. Now, the business is buying something. They are buying assets, valuable item. Now, this one, cash register, we refer it as the equipment. When you talk about the accounting jargon, this one, we refer to it as the equipment. It is a cash register, but you refer to it as the equipment. It will be 14,500. Now, when you identify two accounts that are affected, the first one, it is bank, and the second one, it is equipment. Now, both accounts, they fall under assets. Both accounts, they fall under assets. Now, when you analyze it on the normal template or format of the accounting equation that we know, we'll say effect on the assets, it will be negative 14,500. That shows that the bank decreases assets. We are paying. When you pay the money, it means the money will decrease in the business bank account. But the equipment also will increase the amount in the assets of the business. The assets of the business will increase because of the equipment that we have bought. It means bank will decrease and equipment will increase. Now, the impact or the effect under owner's equity to be 0. Then the source document here, let us remember, it is CPJ. The general it is CPJ. Source document, it will be EFT. Source document EFT, then the general CPJ, cash payment general. Now, account to be debited, it will be equipment because it is an asset, increases assets on the debit side, equipment will increase, then bank, as we are paying, bank will decrease on the credit side. Now, analyzing it on the format that we are saying, familiarize yourself, learners, with this format because it is the format that we are using currently. Now, the account to be debited, equipment, account to be created, bank. Now, under assets will be having plus 14,500, also minus 14,500. The plus one, it is the one of equipment. The minus one or negative one, it is the one of bank. Therefore, when you add the two together, it will be 0. 14,500 minus 14,500 will be 0. Therefore, left-hand side, it is equal to right-hand side. Now, the next transaction, the owner took cash for personal use. Remember, learners, all transactions of CRJ and the CPJ, the bank, it is affected. Then the two accounts that will be affected, it will be the bank and the drawings. Bank and the drawings. Which one will be debited? In this case, we are saying drawings will be debited and bank will be credited. Then the amount to be 1,500. On our format, we are saying account to be debited, it will be drawings, then it has a negative impact on the owner's equity. Then the bank, it is negative 1,500. It affects assets negatively. So assets of the business will decrease because the owner took the money from the bank account of the business. Now, the next one, issue receipt number 002 to Donald Davids for rent received. He rents part of the building, 3,800 per month. This one we have shown you, learners, you should be familiarize yourself with this one. Remember, when you receive the amount of rent, bank account will increase. Then the rent income will also increases owner's equity. We have dealt with this one. Then the next one, we are saying paid wages cash, 9,000. Two accounts that will be affected. It will be bank and the wages. Wages, it is an expense account. Remember, all the expenses accounts, they have a negative impact on the owner's equity. They have a negative impact on the owner's equity. Then the source document, it will be the bank statement, and the general, it will be the CPJ. Now, on our format, we are saying wages will be having a negative impact on the owner's equity. Then the bank will be credited because we are paying money. Then it will be negative 9,000 under the assets. Now, pay the city wages for water and electricity account. Then two accounts affected. It is bank and the water and electricity. Remember, water and electricity is an expense. It will be debited. Then bank, it will be credited. Remember, learners, when you talk about the expenses accounts, you need to remember those accounts that we have dealt with them in term 1. We need them now in term 4. Now, in when we summarize this one, in CRJ, we are saying all the accounts that are affected in the transaction, they will be credited, except bank, which will be debited in all transactions. When you look at the bank, will be debited in all transactions because now we are receiving money. They have a positive impact on the assets. Now, current income, rent income, and the capital, they will increases owner's equity. They will increases owner's equity. It means, learners, in all transactions of the CRJ, we don't want to see you writing a negative amount. It means all amounts, they will be positive because now the business will be receiving money. And again, when you receive money, owner's equity will also increases. Now we want to see only positive numbers, positive amounts. Then the source document, you need to be careful with the source document. Now, in conclusion, we look at the this one, which is the CPJ. On the CPJ, remember, some of the figures, they can be positive and some they can be negative. Some they can be positive and some they can be negative. When you pay the expenses, when the owner took the drawings from the business, all the figures, they will be negative. They will affect owner's equity negatively. So it means it will be minus this amount, minus this amount. When you look at the first transaction, it is the trading license, minus 4,500 telephone, minus 450 wages, minus 2,000. These are the expenses accounts. But now when you look at the drawings, remember, it is independent. The owner took money from the business for his or her own personal use. Therefore, his owner's equity, his financial interest in the business, they will affect it negatively. So it will be minus 5,000. Then under assets, it will also be minus 5,000. Then remember again, on the source document for CPJ, some transactions, they can be taken from or recorded from EFT. Some they can be recorded from the bank statement. Some they can be recorded from withdrawal slip, which the owner can show the business that I have withdrawn cash from the business. Here's the receipt. Then once you see the slip, not the receipt, the slip will record the transaction using that slip as a source document. This is the end of our lesson for today, accounting equation learners. Remember this, it is the format of accounting equation that you need to understand. You need to understand this format because you'll be doing it in grade 10, 11, and 12, even in grade 9. You'll be dealing with this one, whereby you need to show the account debited, account credited, assets, the effect on the assets, owner's equity, and liabilities. But for grade 8 liabilities learners, it is 0. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best in the coming examination. Thank you, Dr. Potkriter.